Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the City of Sacramento's first ever Transportation Priorities Plan meeting. We had one meeting last week. This is our second meeting. The first time we're doing the Transportation Priorities Plan. We're developing the very first plan to prioritize how we invest in transportation. And this is pretty exciting to think about our transportation and maintenance needs holistically and to figure out a way of what our values are and to prioritize them. So this evening, we're going to give you some background on transportation planning and funding, tell you a little bit about this effort, and then share how you and your community members and your neighbors can participate in our online tool that we created, and also talk a little bit about youth engagement. As I mentioned before, we will be taking questions through the chat box, so please feel free to enter comments and questions there. And before I get started, I'd like to introduce our team. So I'm Jennifer Donlin Wyatt. I'm the City of Sacramento's Transportation Planning Manager. And with me today, we have Valerie, who's also on my team, as one of our transportation planners. And then we have our consulting team, Adrian from Fair and Peers. And then we have Nicole and Irving from AIM Consulting. Great, thank you. So before we get started into the nuts and bolts of what the Transportation Priorities Plan is, did you know that the City of Sacramento has 1,800 miles of streets, 250 miles of bikeways, 78 miles of shared use paths, and so much more? But how did this infrastructure get here? Who maintains it? How much does it cost to maintain? And how does the city decide what else gets built in the future? And where does that money come from? So one of the first things you might want to know is how the city pays for transportation maintenance and new projects. Most of the money comes from a few key sources. Just think about some fees that we collect through development projects, as well as sales taxes. Think we have Measure A in Sacramento that is a transportation sales tax measure. Measure U dollars don't actually go to transportation. We have gas taxes that cover about 27% of our overall funding. But most of our funding comes from grants, about 41%. And actually, most grants require that the city make a contribution from anywhere from 20% to 50 or 60% of the cost of a project. And so a lot of our local dollars, our sales taxes and our gas taxes go to support those grants. Building and maintaining the transportation network is a big, and I mean like a really big effort. We have over 700 council adopted projects and maintenance needs that are going on or that are planned or that we know about. And most of these are not funded. And the maintenance needs and these projects are estimated to cost about $5 billion. Yes, that's a billion with a B. Typically, we have about $42 million a year for maintenance, upgrades, and new transportation projects, and that includes grants. The money comes from grants. So under current conditions, it would take the city over 100 years to complete that list of projects and maintenance that we know we need to take care of. With such a great need, how do we decide what gets built first and what gets taken care of later? Maintenance, technology, such as smarter traffic signals, equity and investing in neighborhoods that don't have basic infrastructure like sidewalks or drainage or have crumbling roads. We don't have a comprehensive way to determine what should be maintained or built first. What we hope is that you'll help us identify how we should spend our limited budget. So what is the Transportation Priorities Plan? It's a comprehensive approach to hear your values and apply your values to transportation efforts in Sacramento. The plan will include applying your values to the over 700 projects that are in these plans that are coming up here on your screen. The council has directed staff to work on, and that you worked on as part of the community planning process for all these plans. It'll be planning for the future, technology, so how changing travel patterns work, like Uber and Lyft and autonomous vehicles and how they impact our city. But what is not included in this plan? A lot of folks want us to invest in transit, and if you know me, you know that I love the bus. But transit is not something the City of Sacramento manages. Separate entity called Regional Transit, and then of course we have our commuter buses and rail lines. So that's not something that we're working on. They each have their own individual funding streams, but a lot of our projects that were listed here on the screen identify improvements for you to get to transit. Such as improved sidewalks or bikeways, or for example, the Stockton Boulevard Corridor project, if you're working on that, that also includes a recommendation for a bus lane. This also is not a project that will come up with new street designs that aren't already planned. What we're really looking to do is understand your values around transportation and what is important to you and how can we learn from you. This collaboration with you will happen in 3 phases. In phase 1 that we're in right now, we'll ask you about your transportation values. In phase 2, it'll serve to make sure we heard your values right as we share a list of prioritized investments. And then in phase 3, we'll ask you to review the draft plan and provide input on that. But for now, we're focusing on your transportation values, and we have some ideas of what you might think is important. We think that air quality might be important to you. Here in Sacramento, transportation contributes to more than half of all greenhouse gas emissions. This has a negative impact on air quality and health. So to prioritize air quality and health, that would mean that the city would focus on projects that encourage walking, biking, and the use of electric vehicles. Or maybe connections to places is important to you. By prioritizing connections to places, it would mean prioritizing projects that make it easier to reach schools, parks, libraries, community centers, shops, jobs, and other destinations. Another value you might find important is equity. Prioritizing equity would mean improving transportation conditions in communities that might not have seen their share of investment historically, or those that lack basic infrastructure, or that are low income or communities of color. Maintenance could be one of your values. Prioritizing maintenance would mean fixing potholes, repaving streets and paths, and adding curb ramps. Do you know that Sacramento continuously ranks as one of the worst cities for traffic safety in California? And maybe safety is important to you. Prioritizing safety would mean spending on funds and projects where our most serious and deadly collisions occur. Maybe technology is important to you. I don't know if you know the magic behind the computers of our traffic signals and our traffic operations center. It's pretty cool. Prioritizing technology would mean upgrading our traffic signals, improving signal operations, adding pedestrian signals, and other technological equipment. So tell us, what's important to you? Your values will help us prioritize projects and decide what gets built sooner rather than later. We developed a web tool to gather your input and let me show you how it works. All right, first you go to our website, which is sactransportation.org, and then you will find the tool down over here. Click Start, then it'll ask you to select your language. I chose English. The next page will show some background information that I already covered. Just click Start. And then it'll ask you for your zip code. I put in downtown for this one. And this is where you'll see the values tool. Values tool. Each value has a slider that you can use to assign a percentage. For community destinations, we ask that you select up to 3 types of destinations, such as parks or schools that are important to you. You don't have to assign a percentage to each one. I'm just doing it here to show you an example. You only pick the ones that make sense or are important to you. We also have an open area where you can add in your own value. We ask that you're just specific in what your value is. If you say something like livability, that's not specific enough for us. Give us the specifics of what you'd like to see or what's important to you, specifically related to transportation. Key thing to note is that on the upper right, you'll see the ones up at top here. Those are ones that are prioritized by getting over 25% or more of your input. So you look to see, does that match your values? You review it, and then you click submit. After you submit, we ask for your email address and then some optional questions so we have some background and understand who is participating in the planning process. And that's the tool. But maybe not everybody wants to participate online. We get that. We'll also have paper surveys available in Chinese, English, Hmong, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And they'll be available at these libraries listed here, as well as with a number of our community partners. If you know of a community partner that'd be willing to host some of our voting boxes or ballot boxes with the surveys, please let us know. And we're more than happy to bring a ballot box to them. We're also doing a specific youth-focused engagement process. Youth are the future of our city, but there are also folks that need to get around, whether it be to sports practice, art classes, hanging out with their friends. And so how youth move around the city is important to us as well. And so we want to hear from them. What are the streets like for them? What do the streets mean to them? What does transportation mean for them? And so we launched the On Our Streets campaign, which is asking youth to participate in an artistic way to share what streets mean to them and transportation means to them. So we created the website. It could be a video, it could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be some sort of creative painting. We just want to hear from them about what it means. We're using social media and youth artists and putting out signs and doing a lot of things to reach youth. But we also want to hear from you. Is there a way that we can get in touch with folks to tell them about this effort? So we have the survey. The survey will be open through June 14th. And we're not only holding this meeting to tell you about it, we're going to a lot of communities. So if you can see here on the map, we're hearing from different parts of the city in more in different volumes. So the darker the color purple you see, we're hearing a lot from these communities, and the lighter purple or lavender, and even up in North Sac, we're not hearing from those neighborhoods. So our team is doing a focused effort to try to engage those neighborhoods and to get their input and their participation. So if you have ideas of how we can reach those neighborhoods, maybe we're not hearing so much from, please let us know. You can put it in the chat box so that we can reach folks. And then we want you to take that survey. We want you to tell your neighbors and your friends and your family members to take this survey that you can find at sactransportation.org. And thank you very much. And I think that's it. Nicole, let's open it up to questions.